We want transparency so there can be some form of trust that is reestablished in the community. It's not good for the community to be fearful of law enforcement. Right now, there are people in the community, in this community that's predominantly African American, where this Imam Luqman is at, there are people in the community that say they trust the Muslims at Masjid al-Haq more than they trust the police and law enforcement themselves. And that speaks to a very serious problem where there's more trust amongst people who have been accused by some of being extremists and terrorists, where people who live amongst them, predominantly Christians, have more trust in them than the FBI and the police themselves. So these are serious issues.
I have three questions. First one is for Ron Scott. You talked about an independent investigative within the community. Who would be involved, and when would this investigation begin?
We have not actually put together all of the members of that, but we do independent investigations all the time. We actually go out into the community, we canvass the neighborhoods, we talk to people who in many cases have not been talked to in certain situations. And I've spoken with CAIR about this. So essentially, there are a number of people who actually are engaged in this, other human rights organizations, civil rights organizations, and in many cases, even organizations like the Guild. We have done these kind of investigations in the past.
So there will definitely be an independent community-based investigation.
Right. We're certainly going to augment what we do in relationship to this investigation. If you choose, if the federal government decides to do an investigation, we're going to follow very closely that so that we can do an independent activity to make sure that they're doing what they should do. Because in many cases, you have a culture which sustains itself by in many cases asking the questions, which validates, the very thing. I think the gentleman here asked, would I be happy with anything even if we found that it didn't happen? I do know about the culture of law enforcement, and I do know about the fact that in many cases, even if you have an objective situation, that the culture tends to turn in on itself and support that which is done, which is not to say that that's always the case. Sometimes you get a fair assessment. So that's why I'm saying we need individuals who have done this work, and we've done it now for like some 16 years, or 13 years certainly, and in many cases we found exactly the opposite of what police agencies have said in the beginning.
Has a request been made to meet with Eric Holder when he comes Thursday?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So what's the word?
Well, I can ask some of my other panel members here, but we've all made that request. Numerous organizations across the spectrum, civil rights organizations, human rights activist organizations have made that request and have made it very strongly and loudly. We think it's important, not only because we like to talk to him just about this, but we'd like to talk to him about the federal consent decree that's here. We'd like to talk about the ongoing racial profiling that exists. We'd like to talk to him about the attacks that are visited upon Muslims in particular, and the conjoining of the so-called Black Panther Muslims with the so-called current Muslims and attempting to build the conflict between the two. All of those images, we think it's important for him to look at in view of what we see as a very potentially distressing time in this country. Because if people were to react to some of the sentiment that's being spewed out there, you could have a very dangerous situation for a lot of people. And a lot of people are really reasonably and rightfully frightened by it.
So are you going to meet with him?
We don't know.
Okay.
I want to make one comment real quick before I answer you.
Okay.
Let's also keep in context that this imam was an African-American male.
Right.
And in the city of Detroit and nationwide, there's a long history, ongoing history of excessive force being visited upon black males. This is a reality. There's been many civil rights reports and even books written about this. So this is why there is and I know Mike said it's not a black issue and it's not a Muslim issue, but the reality is there is a long history in these United States of America, and especially in Detroit, which has been under federal review in recent years for excessive force against black males by law enforcement. This is why there is even more of a need for an outside party to investigate the shooting of the FBI besides the FBI investigating itself.
Have you guys gotten any indication that they...
She was first.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask.
that was, let me just ask this one, it's really, it's piggybacking on yours. Regarding the event at the Renaissance Center, the website for the Anti-Defamation League indicates that only people who are special sponsors will be allowed in to meet with Eric Holder. Do you have any awareness of that? You haven't received any confirmation that he'll meet with you?
That's not true.
He can speak to it because he's the co-chair of ALPAC. He can speak.
Okay.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's not
Okay.
That's not true.
I guess just a quick question would be, have you gotten any indication from any correspondence? I know this letter was just sent yesterday, but any indication that they will have some sort of internal investigation, like that confirmed that they understand that you have issues with what happened and that they will move forward with some kind of internal review?
No, we have not received any call or written correspondence. All I've seen was a free press story in which a reporter contacted the DOJ, and they said they are very aware of the situation. So we're hoping that between this letter and Attorney General Holder coming, that this issue can be raised more in the forefront on the minds of the people at the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department.
What if there is no response, though, or if they don't, undertake this investigation, at least to how you would like it? What then?
Eternal vigilance calls for internal questioning. Internal questioning calls for internal challenge. Internal challenge calls for confronting those things which we fail to deal with. And the only thing I can say, we'll do whatever is necessary to actually find justice in this matter. I mean, whether it's in the streets or whether it's in the streets, we'll do whatever is necessary.
I want to ask Mr. Ayala.
Answer the phone, Madam Police.
Yes, it's going off, it's going off.
You were referring to Imam Abdullah's wife. She's facing deportation to Eritrea. Could you talk about that a little bit? Tanzania. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, she's been here for approximately over 10 years, and she did file her immigration papers. Her husband, which is her late husband, the Imam, had filed for her, and it has been approved, which we call I-130, classifying as an immediate relative of the United States citizen. Unfortunately, for some reason or another, the actual green card application was either never submitted or was submitted and was still pending with the Immigration Service. We're still yet to find out those details. But she's been here for approximately 10 years, and she has absolutely no criminal record of any sort. They have set her they basically instituted removal proceedings against her under 240 of the Act, the Immigration Nationality Act. She's been required to report to immigration every 2 weeks temporarily until after a month, which she can report on longer periods of, say, 3 to 4 months every time.
These actions have taken place since the shooting, or had they been
Yes, it was
underway?
immediately after the shooting when they found out that what her immigration status is, that immigration got involved and started the removal proceedings against her.
Does she have any minor children at home?
No, not that I know.
So you said there was a problem maybe processing the green card, maybe the paperwork wasn't filed, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, the initial, there's a two-step process in order to get the green card. One is filing the I-130 to classify as immediate relative, this is the true and legitimate marriage, which that has already been approved a couple of years back. However, that was in, I believe, in 2004. However, we haven't seen the I-485, which is classified as a legal permanent resident. That has not, either that has not been submitted or has been submitted but not adjudicated.
But if she was married, why would they come back now and try to, I guess, how could they legally?
Well, that's a good question. Initially, someone at the deportation office, initially they had set it up for her to come back and report 3 or 4 months. Then somebody made a decision to have her report every week. Again, burdening her with you can imagine the distraught and the significance of losing a loved one, a spouse, has on an individual, and yet telling her to come in every week,